Hi, thank you for staying tuned to this topic on why electricity in Kenya is expensive. This is the final part where we'll see how power is expensive because of mismanagement in KPLC, and I'll touch on why KPLC enjoys such benefits. My name is Susan Wanjiku. I'm the founder of wanjikuseyeke, and here I discuss the relationship between economic development and governance so that you can understand, engage, and influence the matters that affect you and I. Welcome to wanjikuseyeke. Kenya Power is a commercial enterprise and is required to not only manage its operational costs, make a profit, and maximize shareholder value. However, in 2020, KPLC made headlines after it reported a loss of 7 billion Kenya shillings before tax. Now, one of the issues that they stated that had been contributing to this loss is a decline in demand for electricity and households and companies shifting to alternatives like ungenerated solar. So KPLC apparently wasn't making enough to meet its financial obligations. And this is the reason why President Uhuru commissioned the Taskforce to review the power purchase agreements. In my previous video, I discussed the issues with the power purchase agreements, or the IPPs, which affect the financial performance of KPLC. Then they pass those costs to you and I. But in this video, we're looking at the issues specific to KPLC. I want to begin by acknowledging that Kenya Power is in a supposed dilemma, but this dilemma comes from their own inefficiencies. On one hand, the demand for electricity from Kenya Power is declining because electricity is expensive and they do irregular billing. Like your bill can be 5,000 this month and then next month it's 15,000. On the other hand, Kenya Power makes electricity expensive because of their own mismanagement, and the expensive contracts with the power producers reduces its profitability. But in my opinion, the current demand wouldn't be an issue to KPLC if they reduce their wastage and manage their financial obligations better. So all this is counterproductive, it's illogical, and it's self-sabotaging. So what are these sources of inefficiency in KPLC which cost us Kenyans? The first issue is system losses at KPLC. So system losses is the proportion of electricity that is lost in the process of electricity transmission and distribution, and it can be at a technical level or at a commercial level. Technical losses occur when electricity is lost during transmission and distribution of power from the generation point to the customer, while commercial losses are due to theft at the end user point. So for instance, on the 10th of January of 2022, there was a nationwide power outage that was caused by collapsed power transmission lines because of the vandalism of the power infrastructure. So these vandals target different components of the transmission line towers, like the conductors to go and do illegal lines, or aluminium and steel, which is sold as scrap metal. So it's alleged that despite a tip-off about the state of those transmission towers, Kenya Power management and employees failed to act in time and were negligent by failing to maintain the towers that support the transmission line, leading to a collapse of the towers. And as a result, some senior managers at Kenya Power were eventually charged for this, and an eviction notice was also given to the residents who live close to those towers. And that's when Uhuru declared a ban on the sale and export of scrap metal until this issue is sorted out. And he also declared that such acts of vandalism is economic sabotage, and it's an act of treason which itself is punishable by death.
We have seen vandalism of different signboards being taken down. We have seen towers of our transmission lines coming down as a result of vandalism. But we have also seen clear cases of sabotage, as was the case in Naivasha, where people have intentionally and bolted some of our transmission lines and masts to create chaos and havoc. It is clear, and the law is clear, these are acts of nothing less than economic sabotage, which falls as a treasonable act, and the law is very clear with individuals who commit treasonable acts and plunge the country into chaos for their own selfish needs.
Now, in addition to that, there's a lot of pilferage at KPLC, where the Kenya Power technicians and the engineers collude with businessmen to steal different material, rods and conductors and wires from Kenya Power's warehouses worth millions, and obviously this is a loss to KPLC. For example, in Feb of 2022, a KPLC technician and a businessman were arrested after being linked to the theft of materials that were meant for a rural electrification project. Then in another instance, 1 million meters mysteriously disappeared, which were intended for connecting new customers onto the national grid. And each meter costs about 2,500 Kenya shillings, so that's a loss of 2 billion Kenya shillings. But in actual sense, if 1 million people were actually connected onto the grid, Kenya Power would have made money from paying customers. And all this is usually done to run parallel operations similar to KPLC, to do illegal connections without actually connecting people to power, or to just resell those materials. Then finally, one thing that contributes to the issues within Kenya Power is the procurement. Other than the many power purchase agreements to generate electricity that we do not need, they also procure materials which are obsolete or slow moving, and at times are substandard. As of 2021, it was reported that Kenya Power had stock worth billions, including electricity poles, meters, transformers, and spare parts that had been idle for over 5 years. I know it may not look like a big deal, but stock sitting idle is really bad for business because that's cash that could have been used for other things. And also, if you buy faulty and substandard items, that means it'll keep you in a perpetual cycle of having to replace them or to fix them, which is wastage. Now, I want to use the case of Lake Turkana Wind Farm to demonstrate mischief by players in the energy sector in a section I want to call carrying us pumpkin, or as Kenyans would say, kutubeba malenge. In English, taking us for idiots. Now, this project is said to be the largest wind power generation project in Africa, sitting on about 40,000 acres of land. But it's one project that has had issues, especially with the project planning and the terms of the contract. It also seems like these problems are by design because the financial implications are in the favor of the power producers. So the first issue is that at the planning stage, the owners of the project were granted exclusive rights by EPRA, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, to conduct a feasibility study, which again is a ground for conflict of interest. How? Because obviously they'll say that the project is feasible even when it's not, so that they can be allowed to proceed with the project and make money off of it, which they did. In fact, the World Bank withdrew support for that project for that very reason, that Kenya would not be able to consume all that electricity because the demand isn't enough and already there's oversupply. Secondly, transmission lines were required to evacuate the power from the plant. But since the transmission lines were not ready, it was agreed that the construction of the transmission lines and the construction of the power plant be done concurrently, so that as soon as the wind farm project was completed, the power could be distributed. It was expected that the transmission lines would be completed in approximately 14 months, and the wind power plant would take 2 years. Now, this is where the problem comes in. If If the transmission lines were not complete by the time the wind plant was completed, Kenya Power would have to compensate the investors 1 billion Kenya shillings per month, and for as long as the project is delayed. And it just so happened that there was a 21-month delay in the completion of the transmission line because the first company that was commissioned to do the transmission line supposedly went bankrupt in the middle of the project. Now, as a result, Kenya Power will have to pay a penalty of 18 billion Kenya shillings over time, which it has started. And what makes it worse is that this is power that we did not consume. Again, in 2020, in this same project, while Kenya Power was paying these penalties, they made an overpayment of about 700 million Kenya shillings to Lake Turkana, but then they asked for a refund. However, Lake Turkana responded almost immediately on 8th December of 2020, asking Kenya Power for the bank details so that they could rewire and refund the money. It took a clean 11 months for Kenya Power to respond, and worse yet, Kenya Power gave the wrong bank details. Then on 18th June 2022, Lake Turkana Wind Project wrote to Kenya Power to inform them that the money had been reversed and that they should send the correct details. Now, Kenya Power responded and told them that they would get back to them. But as of 3rd February 2022, they were yet to give the correct bank details. When the Kenya Power management was asked by the members of parliament why it's taking so long to send the correct bank details, this is how the conversation went in that inquiry.
Is there a reason why we responded back after 1 year?
There was consultation between KPLC and government in regard to the same.
Today is 3rd of February. Have you given them the right details?
Not yet, Chair.
How much does it cost to locate the account number? And from your effectiveness, how could you have given an account that does not exist? What fishy is within this account number and the money being reverted? And again, who is enjoying this interest that is being gotten from this money?
Over 700 million is not a change from a kiosk. So can you tell us who is behind this? Just giving an account number so that you can be given back your money.
From Treasury, from Ministry of Energy, from Kenya Power themselves, no one seems to be knowing. Then I'm convinced that as a matter of fact, Parliament should not indulge in giving you more financing.
Chair, I think even this current budget, we have given Kenya Power a lot of money. I think we should lobby that this money should not be given to you. Because here you have 600 million, which you are refusing to be deposited in your account.
So why does Kenya Power get away with all of this? Kenya Power gets away with all of this because they are the only ones allowed to distribute and supply power as per the Energy Act in Kenya, meaning they're a monopoly. There's some conversation about ending the monopoly that Kenya Power has, but in a newspaper article by the Business Daily in 2018, the Energy Principal Secretary Joseph Njoroge said that market liberalization would weaken Kenya Power's finances and make it default on its contractual obligations of buying specified amounts of power from producers, since the entry of other players would eat into its retail market share. It's the audacity of that statement for me. If Kenya Power were operating in a competitive market, at least with even just 2 or 3 other power utility companies, they'd have run out of business a long time ago. So Kenya Power is enjoying this power of being a monopoly and their bad manners because they're a monopoly and they have the government backing them. Because to survive in a competitive market, a business needs to innovate and find a way to bring down their costs and reduce wastage internally so that it can be able to charge its customers less and have a competitive cost advantage over other businesses in the industry. Especially for products like electricity and fuel, where you can't really do much to make a product different from your competitor. Unlike other products like phones, where there's a clear difference between like iPhone and Android. So for electricity, you can't have electricity and electricity Pro Max, So that's why you see oil marketers like Shell or Total Energy competing on price differences of 2 shillings, 3 shillings on their fuel, and also providing additional services. So is there an alternative? Yes, there's an alternative to using power from KPLC, which is on generated solar. Actually, in 2021, Kenya Power raised an alarm that companies and households had begun to switch to their own generated solar, and it had affected their profits. Companies operating at an industrial scale and large institutions make up 54% of Kenya Power's revenues. So companies like London Distillers, Garden City Mall, and Moi International Airport are among the companies that are in the process of setting up their own solar systems to save them tens of millions of Kenya shillings annually in energy costs. So after that happened, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, took that as an opportune moment to remind Kenyans and solar power installers that they had very strict requirements and regulations when it comes to solar installation. Then considering the timing, that was definitely not a coincidence. It was definitely to send a message because they definitely do not want anything competing with electricity from Kenya Power. So, in conclusion, the avoidable things that affect KPLC's books of accounting negatively will probably end up in your electricity bill. Also, because a few individuals decided to be greedy, the entire country has to pay for it. But for you and I as citizens, we pay the price twice. First, your electricity bill will be expensive, and on top of that, life becomes expensive because businesses may decide to pass those costs on to you. And on top of that, if the business environment is unfavorable, you and I will not get jobs or be paid for our worth because capitalism and also money doesn't grow on trees. Ultimately, all this perpetuates the cycle of poverty and unemployment. This marks the end of the segment of the 3 ways the government is sabotaging the economy of Kenya, making our problems as a country worse. In my next video, I'll cover why people get into politics and why politics is so dirty. I've attached all the references in the description box, including the report by the Taskforce, so make sure you make time to look at that. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and so that we can continue growing as a community of people who understand, engage, and influence the matters that affect you and I. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.